Two fishermen went into the English Channel for fishing. They cast their net. After some time, they realized that something had been caught. They began pulling the net up, but no matter how hard they tried, the net would not rise. They realized that something was seriously stuck. They tried again. Somehow, they managed to pull the net up, but inside the net, there were no fish as they had expected. It was a decomposed human body. The moment they saw it, the fishermen began to panic. They immediately turned the boat back toward the shore. They informed the police. As soon as the information was received, the police arrived at the spot. The police began examining the body. There were deep wounds embedded in the body. The police understood that it was a murder. However, since many parts of the body had been eaten by fish, it was impossible to identify who the person was. The only piece of evidence the police obtained was a watch. But it was not an ordinary watch. It was a very expensive Rolex watch. The watch was not functioning. The date shown on the watch was July 22nd. Usually, Rolex watches have a special feature. If submerged in water, the watch stops functioning only after 48 hours. From this, the police understood that the murder had taken place on June 20th. However, the police believed that more evidence could still be obtained from the watch. They then took the watch to a repair shop. It was from the mechanic there that they received this information. Every Rolex watch has a serial number. Using that serial number, it is possible to find out who purchased the watch. The police immediately went to a Rolex showroom. They handed over the watch they had. Finally, the police found the answer. The watch belonged to a man named Ronald Joseph Platt. Joseph Platt was the one who had died. Moreover, they also provided his address to the police. The police traced that address. It was a rural area. There were only 2 houses there. Neither of the houses had numbers or name boards. With no other option, the police entered the first house they saw. They explained the matter to the resident. But that was not the house they were looking for. The police came out of that house. But as they were leaving, the resident asked a question.
"Whom are you looking for?" "We are looking for the house of a man named Joseph Platt." "No one by that name lives there. A man named David Davis lives there."
Those words raised several suspicions in the minds of the police. Immediately, the police went to the other house. A middle-aged man opened the door. The police asked him to write down his name and details on paper. Within a short time, he wrote it down and handed it to the police. But the police could not believe the details he had written. They were the details of the deceased Joseph Platt. The police had no idea where the case was heading. Who could this man be? If he is Joseph Platt, then who is the one who died? Then who is the David Davis mentioned by the neighbor? The mystery of the case continued to deepen. The police began questioning the man who identified himself as Joseph Platt. However, the interrogation did not yield any concrete evidence. Still, the police had certain suspicions about him. The reason was that he had no knowledge at all about the Rolex watch. He told the police that he had never bought such a watch. The police then began searching his house. After that, the police sought more information about him from the neighbor. That was when they received some new details.
"I have known him for months. He is an extremely wealthy man who lives a luxurious life. He even owns a very expensive luxury yacht. I often see it in the English Channel."
That was when the police became suspicious. They questioned him further about the yacht. Immediately, the police demanded the yacht's logbook from Platt. When they examined the logbook, they understood something crucial. On June 20th, the very day the murder took place, his yacht was in the English Channel. The police then began examining the yacht for evidence. During the inspection, they found some strands of hair. The police sent them for DNA testing. From the test results, they learned that the DNA of the deceased and the DNA found on the yacht were the same. Thus, the police identified the murderer. They immediately arrested him and began interrogating him. His real name was Albert Walker. He was born in Canada. Since he could not complete his schooling, he had been doing small jobs from a young age. Later, he developed the desire to start his own business. In 1980, he started a company called Walker Finance. The company was very successful. As a result, 6 new branches were opened. However, in 1986, a stock deal that Walker had invested in collapsed. He realized that the company was heading toward a massive loss. At that time, the company held about $3.4 million invested by nearly 70 customers. He was not willing to lose that money. Eventually, he arrived at the idea of disappearing with the money. But he had a family there. That very day, he went home. He told his wife that he was going on a trip to Europe with his eldest daughter. His wife did not find anything unusual about it. He left for Europe with his daughter, taking the money with him. That was when the company's customers learned the truth. They all began filing cases against him. Soon, his name appeared on Canada's most wanted list. As soon as Albert arrived in England, he changed his name. He adopted the name David Davis. Moreover, he introduced his eldest daughter as his wife to others. They began living there as a family. After some time, he made a friend there. His name was Ronald Platt. He was the owner of a TV repair shop. His biggest dream was to start a business in Canada. It was this ambition that brought Walker closer to him. Walker invested some money in Platt's shop. Thus, they became partners. Their shop gradually began to grow. Once he had enough money, Ronald Platt began thinking about fulfilling his old dream. He decided to move to Canada. The plan was to start an electronics shop. Walker covered Platt's travel tickets and other expenses. But before leaving, Walker collected some details from him. Walker obtained Platt's driving license, signature, birth certificate, and all other personal documents. Platt traveled to Canada with his family. He started his business there. At the same time in England, Albert, living under the name David Davis, was transforming himself into a new identity, Ronald Platt. Walker began managing Platt's business and other affairs, but after some time, things took a turn. Ronald Platt's business in Canada began to suffer losses. As a result, he decided to return to England. When Walker learned this, he was deeply shocked, because Walker was now living in England under Ronald Platt's identity. He realized that if Platt returned, he would be the one facing the most trouble. He felt that he had to do something. He began planning what to do next. Within a few days, Ronald Platt arrived in England. He then met Walker. During that meeting, Walker suggested going on a fishing trip. Platt agreed. The very next day, they went out to sea on Walker's yacht. After traveling some distance, they stopped the yacht. They then began talking. In the middle of that conversation, Walker rendered Platt unconscious. He then tied Platt's body to an anchor. Finally, he threw the body into the sea. After the interrogation, Albert was produced before the court. The court sentenced him to 20 years of life imprisonment. Later, in 2005, the English police handed him over to the Canadian police. There too, he was sentenced to life imprisonment.